Hello and welcome to My Music Problems, episode 21, Modulation. I'm not going to talk like that the entire video, but in this video, what I wanted to talk about was how I have modulated in certain songs. Maybe I'll have an example of that later on, but I want to do this quick because in some of my songs, especially something like Chasing Fantasy, I pretty much stayed in E Lydian, I think, through the whole thing. And there might have been some modulation within the scales that you can find in E Lydian, such as B major. But we'll come back to that later, because in this one, I'm going to focus on a lot of times if you're in standard tuning, you're going to be with E minor, because that is the lowest note of the scale. It doesn't necessarily have to be E minor, but the reason I went with E minor is because E minor actually works with E Phrygian and E Dorian. You can see that here, and if you look at the breakdown of these three scales, E minor is in all of them, and G major is in all of them. And of course, because they're related, there's a C major in G major. It is the fourth chord, and there is also obviously a D major in G major as well, which is the fifth chord. And of course with D major, they'll have their own relations as well to some other. So I mean, your list of modulation can go on, but I'm focusing right now on E minor, and the third of E minor. Well, yeah, I would say, of course, it's always the third. In all, well, yeah, no. What am I talking about? The third is always going to be G major, and the fifth is always going to be B. But it shouldn't be. It's not going to be, because if you look in here, there is a common thread with G major and D major, where you have B minor, but you also have B diminished if you're in C major. So there's a way you could probably even work in B diminished in there. If you're going to go to a C chord, rather than go to B minor, maybe hit that B diminished all of a sudden, and then you can go back to C major and then kind of be in there for a little bit, and then once you hit that E chord, go back to either any one of these scales. You could kind of go into there. You could loop all three together, and then as long as you're kind of rooting on E, you can keep going back to that. And that's just kind of something that I really need to work on, or I think it would come in handy and really help soloing or some lead parts when you're kind of getting stuck, or you're playing the same kind of I was going to say you're just playing the same kind of I don't want to say it. That's why I was going to say lick. I just hate it. I don't know why. If I hate some of the terminology, just I don't know why it bugs me. I'm going to leave this in so you can just hear the cringe in me. I didn't really know what else to call it. If you're playing a lead and you're just playing this part, and you want to get out of what you're doing, and you're like, well, maybe if I modulate. I mean, you can obviously just do that same pattern that you're doing in any of these scales, just changing it up. And if it's going to be E as your root, obviously it's just going to be a matter of which one you're in. It doesn't change too much. I mean, there's really, when it comes to the notes, you're really just dealing with basically, would it be, so I guess F sharp and F, and then C, and so there's 9 notes basically you could be dealing with to solo with between these scales. So you're basically looking at 9 notes in here, and then you can just play the play any chords how you want. I mean, you can mix things together once you got it going, but it's just a matter of being locked in and figuring that. So I wanted to put some of this stuff into practice. So, like I said, originally, I brought up the fact that I said songs. Now, yes, definitely in songs, but I know a riff where I modulate. One thing that's really easy to modulate is you just do the same thing over and over, but you just start at a different note. So I wrote this riff, and I don't think I've ever played it before on here, but it goes. So actually, I'll play it the real way. That's not 100% way how it goes. It actually goes like this. Now that kind of, in a way, I just wrote that kind of, I was actually in a scale, and I, skipped some notes and kind of came up with that. It's pretty basic, and then I just kind of moved it between starting on B, C, and D, and that basically became the riff. And it kind of has a Call of Cthulhu kind of feel. That wasn't what it was based off of when I was writing it. I just really liked that riff, and it's usually distorted, but I did think about taking that and adding a little bit to it, and I think I did. I do have it somewhere, and maybe I did through Guitar Pro 7 play that riff before, but that was just an easy modulation. Again, it's just. And then obviously I would do something else, and I would just have to kind of figure out where I'm rooting everything when it comes to the rest of the song. But sticking back with E minor and putting things into practice, because, you have those 9 notes to go with, so. No, there's no. So one thing too, though, with E minor is, in all of these, there's no major 7th to root back. So I mean, you could throw that in there if you want to, stabilize everything a little more, add the 10th, be that whatever you'd want to call it at that point, whether it be E flat or D sharp, whatever it would be, as the 10th note. But if you play an F chord, you're going to be in C, because in the 2, F is usually, well, no, that's not true. Actually, the F chord, that's the one that is kind of all over the place in this. You have it as the major, the minor. Well, no, actually, there is no. Oh, it's because. Never mind. Shut up, Chris. But yeah, no, it's either F sharp diminished or F sharp minor, or just an F major. There's no F sharp major, and there's no F minor in this. You can throw it in there. Again, you can modulate however your heart's desire, but that's just kind of where this is going long. So let me do something just silly with this, just to kind of hear it out, and then we'll wrap this up. Alright, so that was just a basic kind of mess around using the different chords of those 3 scales. It wasn't anything spectacular. You want to use the whole neck. There's a lot of work to be done. I'll have to do it, especially in songwriting. I'll definitely look into it from here on out to kind of further my play. But at this point, all the links are down below. All the, if you want to try our Discord, talk to some cool people, feel free to do that. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get out of here and do something else.